Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to introduce a powerful and important feature of Java. It's the concept of inheritance. We're going to use it to create new types of GameObj. So where we are so far in the game is we have a GameObj class and all of our things, the player, the bullets, the asteroids, those are all GameObjects. I want to add a GameObj that behaves slightly differently than the other GameObjects. And I know some of you have tried to do this, and you've tried to just put all of your different behaviors inside the one GameObj, and you've run into problems, because if you change how one thing moves, that changes how the other things move. So what I'm going to show you how to do is how to tell the computer that you want to make a new class that is a special type of GameObj. So you get all of the GameObj stuff automatically inside your new class, but then you can add little changes or little extra things. So what we're going to make is we're going to make a power-up object. Except I'm actually going to call it temp GameObj, because the idea of a power-up is it appears, it has a short lifespan, and after a little while it disappears. But that might be true of other things in the game also. For example, if when we get the power-up, we want to display some text that says +10 or something, and the text slowly floats upwards and then disappears. That's another example where we want some object, in this case text, to appear temporarily and then disappear. So let's start. I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to call it temp GameObj. Ordinarily, at this time, we would start making variables and make the constructor and getter and setter methods. Instead, up here in the declaration line for the class, I'm going to type extends GameObj. You'll see some red here, and I'll tell you about that in a second. What extends GameObj means is that our new class is going to be a type of GameObj. And what that means is that we get all of these variables and we get all of these methods available for our use in here for free. So you can imagine it's as if they've been invisibly copied inside here. So they're here, you just can't see them. Okay, there's one note to make about this. If you've marked them private, then even though your temp GameObj has those variables, you can't use them directly. So it's better actually if you use a new term you don't know. Instead of private, you call them protected. What protected means is that main, for example, the main class can't see these, but anything that extends GameObj can. Alright, so public or protected, either of those are going to be fine. Alright, so hover over the red and say add constructor. So as you can see, this is a normal kind of a constructor. It matches our class name, it takes all the inputs that it needs, but then it calls super. Some of you asked last time what is super about, and now's the time when you get to know. What super does is it runs the constructor of the class you're extending. So this runs the GameObj constructor. The reason why is because if you get all of these variables, but you need to give values to all of these variables, because that's the job of the constructor. It's to say, when you make an object, what's its x, what's its y, where do those come from? So instead of making my own constructor that says, you know, this.x equals x, this.y equals y, we could do that. See, notice how there's no red underlining here? So this.x recognizes this x coordinate that we're inheriting from GameObj. But instead of doing that, there's no sense to that. Instead, you can just run the constructor of GameObj. So we're taking an x as input, and then we're telling the GameObj constructor, hey, take that x, and so it's going to pass that x into this input, and then we assign it to the x variable. Okay, so far so good. Just to show you that this is a class like any other class, let's go ahead and add a few of our own variables. Let's add a string called name, and let's add a getter, getName, which will return the name. Well, if we need to have a name variable, we need to give it the value inside the constructor here. So just like we did before, if you want to add a new input to the constructor, you can totally do that. So I'll call it string n, and then underneath super, I'll say name equals n. So something to note here, some of the inputs, the ones that are for variables that we're getting from GameObj, like x and y, we're getting x and y from GameObj, those variables we send to the GameObj constructor by running super. Other variables, like name doesn't exist inside GameObj. Name is a special thing just for temporary GameObjects. So we still take an input, because we still need to give it a value, but we can't pass n as an input to super, because the GameObj constructor doesn't expect to see n. So instead, we just do the assignment right here inside our own constructor. So, long story short, if there are things unique to temporary GameObj, do them right here in this class. If there are things related to who you're extending, then you can send the information along. As the last step in this video, I want to show you how you can make actual temporary GameObj objects inside main, and just prove to you that you can do all the normal things with them. And then next time we'll actually make this behave in a slightly different way. So let's go to main. I guess let's just make a single temporary GameObj. So temp GameObj is the data type, and I'm going to call it powerup. And then inside setup, I'll go ahead and create it. I think I'm going to do it maybe at the very bottom of setup here. So I'll say powerup equals new temp GameObj. And now I've already forgotten what the constructor expects, so let's take a look. Sometimes I like to have these be side by side. Let's make the text a little bit bigger. Alright, so I see my temporary GameObj class expects an x and a y, an x speed and a y speed, a diameter. Alright, so x and y is going to be 300, 300. I don't want it to move at all, so I'm going to create x speed, y speed with 0, 0. Let's see, diameter, we're still not using diameter, so we should probably delete that. But I'm not going to do that in this video. Oh, pimage. So we'll probably want to load a pimage and then a name. So I'm going to comment this line out for a second so that I can load a pimage. So I'm going to create a new pimage right here. It's going to be called powerup image. And I'm going to load image. And I've actually already made a powerup image. It's called powerup.png. I think I have. You would want to find your own image, but for the moment, follow along here. So powerup image. And then the name is going to be +1 life. So that's the name of the powerup. Alright. So notice the last input to the constructor is a string, because the last input to the GameObj constructor is supposed to be the string that names it. Alright, so powerup. So here's what I want to show you. Inside draw, I can say powerup.update and powerup.draw this, just the same way I did for the player. Player.update, player.draw. Powerup update, powerup draw. Here's what's weird though. Powerup update, this is the temp GameObj class, and a powerup is a temporary GameObj. See how there's no update method in here? But yet I can run the update method. What's going on? Well, what's going on is what I said. It's that the update method inside GameObj is like invisibly available here for free. So powerup, when you tell a powerup to run update, temporary GameObj says, do I have an update method? Oh, I don't seem to. Let's look and see who I'm extending. Let's see if they have an update method. And if they do, then you run that one. And you can see that that's true, actually, if you hold Control and click. It jumps you to the GameObj update method. But then if I want to, I can also run my own methods. So I could print line powerup, and then I could print powerup.getName. Nope. Oh, why don't we like getName? Oh, we do. So getName is this method. and it's unique to powerups, so it's not coming from GameObj. So you can run both kinds. So in other words, this idea of extending is a way of taking some basic level of functionality and then adding extra functionality for a special kind of object. Alright, let's make sure this all works. Oh, there's my power-up. It looks so good. And as you can see, it's displaying power-up like crazy. Alright, come back next time where we'll actually do something interesting with the power-ups.